Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be having a discussion on competitive versus casual Yu-Gi-Oh! And why a lot of people are so defensive when it comes to casual and competitive. And it's due to one factor and one factor alone: archetypes. I have heroes because this would be probably considered a very casual hero deck, because I am using a lot of the older hero monsters, as you can see, like Bubble Man and, Wing Karibo in there. And that's probably like the biggest thing. Even when you go and you want to have fun on a casual level, you're not going to be able to in certain formats because you have to be playing the best version of the archetype to have fun. Like this hero deck, even if you went to a more casual setting, would be made fun of. Now, let's go back. And I don't think I have it on here. This has been something I've been playing with, but let's talk about Yugi Kaiba format and the Power 5. Between Yugi Kaiba format and, I would say, GOATs, you had a lot less you had a lot more options to build your deck. Oh, whoops. As long as you were playing the Power 5 spell cards, which was Dark Hole, Raigeki, Monster Reborn, Change of Heart, and, well, Pot of Greed. And as long as you were playing 3 Lao Gens, and at least one or two, maybe one Battle Ox and one Neo the Magical Swordsman, and your deck was going to, especially 3 Maneater Bugs. If you're playing 3 Maneater Bugs, 3 Lao Gens, and the Power 5, the best spells and traps, your deck can be whatever it wants. Sorry about that. The dog was barking. I had to go check it out. But when you compare, say, older Yu-Gi-Oh! To about when archetypes were introduced, you could play a casual deck at a competitive event as long as you were playing 15 of the best cards. And as long as you were doing that, you were fine. Now, when archetypes got introduced, it was a lot different, especially when archetypes became very good. It was a lot harder to play a casual deck in a competitive setting, right? It was a lot harder to play a weird, goofy deck that wasn't 100% optimized. I know I said that weird. Optimal to play. You just had a harder time with the game. And going back to this, if I went to a modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament, and let's say for whatever reason this did okay, everybody would still be talking down to me and saying I'm bad, you should be doing this or you should be doing that, instead of trying to think of a way of, well, why did he do that choice? Oh, it might work for his play style. And that's what I think people don't realize, is that everybody is forced to play the top tier deck the exact same way. If you watch, before archetypes were the main thing for a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you go back and watch a lot of older duels that aren't necessarily archetype focused, but they're mirror matches where they're playing, like, I don't know, Chaos Control, or for goats it would be Chaos. It'd be any of the Chaos mirror matches or any of the Goat Control mirror matches. And watch, I don't know, a mirror match of 2 beatdown decks from Yu-Gi Kaiba format, and you're going to see how those players play the deck differently. One player might play the deck more aggressively, and the other player might play the deck more passively, even not in the mirror match. If you can find the same player, and you will see that they play the decks differently. Now, when archetypes became the major thing with the game, people latched on to, oh, this is my favorite archetype. I really like playing this archetype. So when that archetype is no longer good, or isn't able to at least occasionally win a game against a very competitive deck, they feel butthurt and very upset, even in a casual setting, because you still have some casual duels where it's determined on what archetype you're playing, and everybody plays the archetype deck the same and doesn't do something different. Oh, most hero decks don't play Flame Wingman, Elemental Hero Flame Wingman anymore. It goes for, like, not even Dark Magician decks play Dark Cavalier, and a lot of Red Eyes deck don't even play Red Eyes / Dragon. Everybody plays the archetype the exact same way. They don't do it slightly different. And that's the major thing I think people don't realize, is when archetypes became the staple of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, it made the game easier to play, easier to build decks. You had a straightforward plan. The game was quicker when archetypes were introduced. You didn't have a slugfest of where one card could change a duel. That slowly started to not happen. And that's the difference. When you have a true casual player wants to play a deck that they made, that it's 40 random cards that just somehow work together, and that's what they want. Where a competitive player will most of the time pick an archetype, build a deck around that archetype that best fits their play style, and push that deck to 100%. Well, back in the day, if you built a deck out of 40 random cards, as long as you had, I don't know, between 10 to 15 of the best cards in your deck, you were going to be fine against a competitive player. Yeah, you might lose a game, but there's a high chance that you could win a game. There's a 50-50 shot that you might win a game against a competitive player. But now, if you have that same scenario happen, there's not a handful of good cards that just automatically upgrade your deck and make the deck better without it being an annoying floodgate. And that's where it is you have competitive players, then you have real casual players who just want to play a 40-card random deck for a few hours, maybe win 2 or 3 games and lose 2 or 3 games and be done, but you can't do that no more. You can't just throw together 40 random cards and call it a day. And I'm probably repeating myself here, but when you have, and then you have like different layers of casual and different layers of competitive. You have competitive casual that will build a deck like a competitive player, but not put the effort into, learning any of the combos. And then you have your normal casuals that just wants to play a 40 card random deck, but when it comes down to it, is that most people's complaints, and for some whatever reason they don't seem to understand it, the reason why the game is at where it is because of how strong archetypes are. If you look at that first set of GX, it is very, especially on like the generic cards, they are very weak compared to the generic cards of even Legend of Blue Eyes. The first set of GX, if you put it up against the first set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Legend of Blue Eyes, it would be pretty much the same because they banned a lot of really powerful cards from the first set, so people would buy the newer sets and potentially play the archetype stuff because there is a lot of archetype stuff in GX. But I think that's the major issue, is that archetypes have made it so hard to play casual. That's unless you go pre-archetype. If you go pre-archetype, you will have a ton of fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if you're playing like GOATS, which is probably like the most competitive format out of any of them, you can still have fun with 40 random cards as long as you're playing 5 decent monsters, 5 decent spells, and 5 decent trap cards. As long as you know how to use those cards to the best of your ability, you can win, even if the rest of your deck is just random shit, like a bunch of normal monsters or whatever. Or you're playing a bunch of flip monsters, like, let's go back down here, like Maneater Bug and Han. But that's all we have for this topic today. We might do a part 2 going in depth into more of the game and why competitive and casual clash so much. And that's all.